Welcome to the deep dive. Navigating the world of health information can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose.
It really can.
But today, we are giving you a very targeted roadmap. We're focusing on what a lot of doctors call the silent killer: high blood pressure, hypertension.
Right. It's arguably the most common and probably the most dangerous non-communicable health issue on the globe. And the sources we reviewed, they all confirm that about half of American adults have elevated blood pressure.
Half. That's a staggering number.
It is, and because it rarely shows symptoms until it's really too late, prevention and, early action are absolutely non-negotiable if you want to stave off things like heart attack, stroke, and kidney disease.
And that is exactly why we're here. We've synthesized a stack of really exceptional material today, from Mayo Clinic guidelines, MedStar Health consensus, cutting-edge cardiology research, all with one mission in mind, which is to extract the 10 most high-leverage, non-pharmacological lifestyle changes you can start implementing, right now. These are the steps that can prevent, delay, or maybe even eliminate the need for medication down the road.
These are the tangible levers for building cardiovascular resilience. But before we get to the 10 actions, we really have to establish the playing field. The foundational step is understanding your personal performance dashboard, the core numbers you need to be monitoring.
Okay, let's unpack that dashboard. When a clinician talks about optimal heart health, what are the goalposts? And we're not talking about the thresholds for intervention, right? We're talking about the levels that these lifestyle changes should help us all maintain.
Exactly. We look at 4 key areas. First, it's about how smoothly your blood is flowing. So for blood pressure, we want it to be less than 120 over 80 millimeter Hg. That's your target.
And what happens if that pressure consistently sits higher, even just a little bit higher?
Well, think of it like a plumbing system that was designed for low flow. When the pressure is too high, it's constantly stressing the inner lining of your blood vessels. This leads to these tiny micro tears and inflammation, and that is what sets the stage for plaque buildup over, decades.
Got it. Okay, so the second and third targets, those deal with lipids, right? Cholesterol.
Exactly. The lipid panel, we have 2 key players here. LDL, which you've probably heard called the bad cholesterol. It's kind of traffic trying to jam up the arteries.
So you want that number low.
You want it low, less than 100 mg/dL. Conversely, HDL, the good cholesterol, it acts like the tow truck, clearing debris out of the way. We want that number high, above 40 mg/dL.
And these are crucial numbers because that elevated LDL is what directly leads to the plaque.
Directly implicated in atherosclerotic plaque formation, yes.
And the final number on our dashboard, that gets into metabolic regulation.
Yeah. That's glycemic control. So your fasting blood sugar should optimally range from about 60 to 99 mg/dL. These are the boundaries that tell you your body is efficiently managing glucose and insulin.
And if you routinely go over that range,
then you start looking at insulin resistance, which is another major driver of systemic inflammation and, vascular damage.
Okay, so beyond blood tests, the sources all highlight this critical measurement pretty much everyone can take right now: waist circumference. We all know BMI is a factor aiming for under 25, but why is where you carry the weight so much more important than just the number on the scale?
It's because it isolates the most toxic type of fat. Waist circumference is a measure of the accumulation of visceral fat. That's the deep fat that wraps around your internal organs.
So not the stuff you can pinch.
Exactly. And unlike subcutaneous fat, visceral fat is highly, highly metabolically active. It's basically a little factory for inflammatory markers and harmful free fatty acids.
So it's not just stored energy, it's an active danger zone.
Precisely. It directly interferes with your liver function and accelerates systemic insulin resistance. If you carry excess visceral fat, you are fueling a fire of inflammation that drives cardiovascular disease.
And the risk thresholds are pretty clear on that.
Oh, very clear. Men are at risk if their waist is greater than 40 inches, that's 102 centimeters, and women if it's greater than 35 inches, which is 89 centimeters. This is a critical risk indicator to track right alongside your BP.
That gives us our quantitative targets.
Perfect.
Now, let's dive into the 10 actions, starting with the most high-leverage strategies, the ones centered around diet. This is where we'll cover our first 4 key changes.
Right. Starting with change number 1. Achieve and maintain a healthy weight. This is the first step because the benefit is immediate and it's proportional. Research consistently shows that for every kilogram, that's about 2.2 pounds, you lose, your blood pressure generally drops by about 1 millimeter Hg.
Now, 1 millimeter Hg might seem like a small number, but if you lose, say, 10 or 15 pounds, you're looking at a significant, totally non-pharmacological reduction. How does that mechanism actually work?
It's both mechanical and hormonal. When you carry excess weight, your heart just has to pump harder to supply blood to all that extra tissue. That increases the fluid volume and the strain on your vascular walls.
So less territory to cover.
Exactly. Losing weight reduces the total territory the heart has to supply, which lowers the total systemic resistance.
Mm.
Plus, it improves your hormone profile, which leads to better kidney regulation of your fluid balance.
Okay, that leads us directly into change number 3. Adopt an evidence-based, healthy diet. Now, that sounds a little vague, but our sources really break down the ingredients.
They do. We're talking about a diet that's rich in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy. This approach by itself can lower high blood pressure by an astonishing amount, up to 11 millimeter Hg.
11 millimeter Hg is massive.
It really is, and a huge component of that is minerals, specifically potassium. Getting adequate potassium, and the target is high, you're aiming for 3,500 to 5,000 milligrams per day. It acts as a counterbalance to sodium.
Also,
It signals the kidneys to excrete more sodium, and it helps relax the blood vessel walls, which can drop BP by an additional 4 to 5 millimeter Hg. You can really think of it as the ultimate anti-sodium nutrient.
when people research heart-healthy diets, you always see two come up: the DHH diet and the Mediterranean diet. They're both excellent, so how should you decide which one to lean into if your main goal is specifically hypertension reduction?
That is a great question because the distinction is really in the specifics. The DHH diet, that's dietary approaches to stop hypertension, it was literally engineered for this purpose.
Oh, right.
It achieves its superior anti-hypertensive effect through two mandated components: very strict sodium limitation and a specific mandate for 2 to 3 daily servings of low-fat or fat-free dairy, which are excellent sources of calcium and potassium.
So if lowering your blood pressure is the absolute #1 priority, DASH is the precision tool for the job.
Correct. The Mediterranean diet, while it's fantastic for overall health, longevity, sustainability, it relies heavily on extra virgin olive oil and encourages fish and produce, it often has a less pronounced effect on systolic BP.
And why is that?
Because it just doesn't usually impose that same explicit, intensive sodium limitation.
That sets the table perfectly for change number 4. Restrict sodium. This is the biggest behavioral hurdle for so many people who rely on packaged or restaurant food. What are the specific targets here?
So the basic limitation for everyone is 2,300 milligrams a day or less. That's about 1 teaspoon of salt
1 teaspoon for the whole day.
for the whole day. However, the ideal therapeutic goal for most adults trying to lower high BP is actually 1,500 milligrams a day or less. And hitting that 1,500 milligram goal can often lower blood pressure by another 5 to 6 millimeter Hg.
That's significant, but 1,500 milligrams is tiny when you realize how ubiquitous sodium is. What are the practical strategies to actually hit that number?
The first strategy is just awareness. Most sodium is added during industrial processing, not at your dinner table. So you have to start reading labels, aiming for low sodium or no added salt versions of everything from soup to bread.
Okay.
Second, minimize processed foods. That's the biggest lever you can pull. And third, when you cook at home, you control the content. Use herbs, spices, a little acid like lemon juice or vinegar to enhance flavor instead of relying on table salt.
Before we leave diet, let's connect this to the last piece of the metabolic puzzle. Change 10. Control blood sugar and cholesterol. Now, these factors rely on the same habits, but I want to highlight the specific evidence behind whole grains.
Yeah, the evidence for whole grains is really compelling. Our sources show that individuals consuming just 70 grams per day of whole grains, that's roughly 4 servings, they had a 23% lower risk of cardiovascular disease mortality compared to low consumers.
23% is a huge protective effect just from the type of carb you choose.
It is, and the mechanism is just. It's elegant. The fiber and the bran content in whole grains drastically slows the breakdown of starch into glucose.
So no big blood sugar spikes.
Exactly. It prevents those massive spikes, which protects your vascular system and improves your insulin sensitivity over time. So that directly helps manage blood sugar. And then to control the cholesterol side of Change 10, the mandate is clear. Saturated fat intake must be strictly limited to less than 6% of total daily calories. That directly attacks high LDL levels.
Okay, we fueled the engine with the right diet. Now let's look at how we burn that fuel and strengthen the system. Moving from the kitchen to the gym, let's discuss change number 2. Get regular physical activity. I noticed the research requires a dual approach here, aerobic and resistance work.
You need both because they fix different problems.
Hmm.
Regular aerobic activity is your primary vascular workhorse. It's proven to lower blood pressure by about 5 to 8 millimeter Hg, improve your cardiorespiratory fitness, and manage lipid profiles.
And what's the minimum dose?
The minimum weekly dose is 150 minutes of moderate intensity, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity.
And what distinct benefit does resistance or, strength training provide?
Resistance training, so muscle strengthening activity on at least 2 days per week, that is critical for your metabolic health. It improves glucose metabolism, insulin sensitivity, and it increases muscle mass, which acts as a storage sink for glucose.
So aerobic makes the heart efficient.
And resistance training makes your whole system better at processing the fuel.
For you listening, when you're on the treadmill, how can you practically measure the difference between moderate and vigorous intensity without some complex heart rate monitor?
Just use the simple talk test. If you're exercising at moderate intensity, your breathing has quickened, but you can still talk comfortably. You can hold a conversation, but you definitely cannot sing. You might be slightly sweating.
And when do you cross that line into vigorous intensity?
That's when talking becomes difficult. Your breathing is deep and rapid, and you can only manage a few words before you need to pause for a breath. You should be substantially sweating and feeling really challenged. That's the level that pushes you toward maximum cardiorespiratory fitness benefits.
Okay, moving now to the final pillars, the psychosocial factors that modulate everything else we've discussed. Let's start with change number 8. Manage chronic stress. We all feel stress, but how does the physical chemistry of stress actively damage the heart?
Well, it forces your body into a constant state of low-grade emergency. Chronic stress triggers the persistent release of stress hormones, adrenaline, and cortisol. Adrenaline chronically elevates your heart rate and tightens your blood vessels, which leads to chronic high blood pressure. And cortisol elevates your blood sugar by encouraging the liver to release stored glucose.
So constant stress means constant chemically induced hypertension and high blood sugar, even if your diet is perfect. What kind of intervention is proven to break this cycle?
Mindfulness-based interventions, or MBI. This includes techniques like deep breathing, meditation, yoga, and clinical meta-analyses show that MBI achieves a moderate to large effect size in directly reducing systolic blood pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's alongside verifiable reductions in anxiety and depression. This proves that the psychological load is a fundamental, measurable driver of hypertension that requires its own intervention.
Connected to this is change number 7. Prioritize sleep hygiene. This often feels like a luxury, but the sources treat it as a non-negotiable medication. Why is getting 7 to 9 hours of nightly sleep so critical for the vascular system?
Because that's when your body performs essential vascular maintenance. Adequate sleep facilitates what's called nocturnal blood pressure dipping.
Dipping, yeah.
Yeah. Throughout the night, your blood pressure needs to naturally drop by about 10 to 20% compared to your daytime levels. This dipping gives your vessels and your heart a necessary period of rest and recovery.
And if you don't get enough sleep,
You become a non-dipper. And this chronic lack of nocturnal rest prevents proper vascular repair, it raises systemic inflammation, and it significantly increases your risk for cardiovascular events down the line. The solution is just consistency. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule and make sure your sleeping environment is cool, dark, and quiet.
Finally, we have to address change 5, alcohol moderation, and change 6, smoking cessation.
These are the mandatory controls. Change 6. Quitting smoking is, well, it's mandatory and offers immediate benefits. Smoking elevates BP, lowers your good HDL cholesterol, and accelerates artery damage. Cessation reverses all of those trends.
And alcohol.
As for change 5, alcohol moderation is key. The strict limits are 1 drink or less per day for women and 2 drinks or less per day for men. Adhering to this limit can help lower your BP by about 4 millimeter Hg. But it's important to know that drinking excessively reverses these benefits and can actually render many blood pressure medications ineffective.
We've covered 9 comprehensive lifestyle changes. The 10th and final change is all about the long game. Change 9, monitoring and maintenance. What does success look like once these habits are established?
Success requires constant feedback. Regularly measuring your blood pressure at home ensures that all these intensive lifestyle changes are translating into measurable results. Regular checkups are also non-negotiable.
Right.
But more importantly, because this is a journey, you have to build robust support systems, whether it's family, friends, or a support group. Adherence is the hardest part. And challenges like travel or high stress periods, they're inevitable. So shared accountability is vital for maintenance.
That is a phenomenal, actionable roadmap. We've covered everything from optimizing your biomarkers and making major dietary shifts, cutting sodium, managing weight, improving whole grains, to the crucial duality of exercise and the profound impact of stress and sleep management. The efficacy of all this really relies, as you said, on consistency.
Indeed. And if you are already mastering consistency and you're looking for an advanced edge in metabolic resilience, especially concerning blood sugar control, which, as we established, feeds right into heart health, consider the timing of your physical activity.
The timing. We usually just focus on duration, but how does timing make a difference?
Well, exercising after eating is an advanced therapeutic strategy. When you engage in physical activity immediately following a meal, your muscles act as a sink. They utilize the newly ingested glucose for fuel via muscular uptake.
Interesting.
And this minimizes the duration your blood sugar remains elevated after a meal. It's a subtle but powerful reminder that for truly high-level metabolic and cardiovascular resilience, the when can be just as critical as the how much.
A great point that ties movement right back to the metabolic controls. We encourage you to reflect on your own profile and identify which pillar diet, dual exercise, or mind-body balance